Hi, Andy Vegan here, and today I'm going to tell you something about staple foods. Yeah, that's a basic part of, I would say, veggie and raw, green, cuisine, whatever you like. And today I want to make some onion powder. You know, onion powder is very helpful in the kitchen because onion is a very tasty, delicious veggie and spice and all. It can have many functions, and but it has also this strong sharp taste and flavor. So you can avoid this if you put it into powder. You dehydrate it, and then you have it on stock in a staple food in large quantities, and you can use it very quickly. Just a spoonful, tablespoonful in a soup or so. And then this wonderful, delicious, special oniony taste, you have it in there without all the other effects. And there's still all the many of the nutritious values you have. So to do that, staple food, I take my apple, of course. This is something that takes a little bit more time, but it also will give you time, because once you have the staple ready, it is so easy to prepare all these delicious foods in a whiff of time. So, to make onion powder, I use a dehydrator. So, I don't want to give a complete introduction to dehydrating today, no. I just want to show you my dehydrators. I have two. The first one I began with many years ago. This was a kitchen tool that was very common in our cultures, all the cultures. They have dehydrators everywhere on the countryside, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Or they dehydrated their fruit and their veggies outside in the sun. They still do it in the third stage countries. But when the fridge came up, dehydrators vanished. Because we have other ways to make our foods durable. But for me, in my kitchen, and many other friends out there, dehydrating is not only something to make food more durable, but to make it more tasty. If I eat most of the time raw and fresh food, at a certain point of time I will fancy something different, something more elaborated, something more complicated, complex, as ingredient as well as in the making of the kitchen, of the food, of the dish. And the dehydrator comes in here. So you don't need it at the beginning if you begin to introduce some fresh and raw elements into your kitchen. It doesn't matter. If you want to be a vegan chef, for example, or cook vegan for yourself or your family or friends, you don't need dehydrating too. Because you always have to see, most of the time, dehydrating takes something away from the nutrients. It's something fancy, you know. In certain cases it's different. You gain something what you didn't have before, even in concerning the nutrient values, but that is more exception. So to have a dehydrator, you don't need more than $100 to begin with. This one, for example, I will use it today to make my onion powder, is a round one. It's $100. And I cleansed it before I use it. This is round one, you see, round, with a hole inside, in the middle, and it has it has some stages, planes. This is the ground, it stands on the ground, and these are the rings, the tablets, the trays, the planes where you put your food in. Oh, and maybe your fruit, or your pancakes, or your cookies, whatever you want to do. Today, my onions will go in there. And first I have to cut the onions, and then to process them in the food processor. It's very simple and easy, done in a minute. The only thing is you have to cut the onions, and in some pieces. Oh, that is no problem, because they only have to fit into the food processor, that's all. So very simple. This is my food processor first. It was inexpensive, and it does a lot of work for me. I love it so much. But I cannot use it for certain foods, certain dishes. For example, I need a big shaped square for a cake or something like that. Then I cannot use it because there's always the round in the middle. And it is also simple, more simple structured than my other dehydrator, because the other one, that comes with these kind of squares and layers. It's these, you see, they're totally different. A square, and it has holes in it. It is a more mesh. And you could put two different kinds of sheets on it. These mesh dehydrator sheets, as they're called in literature, for when you put your produce on these mesh sheets, they are dehydrated in a second. It's not in some hours. It's very, very fast because the air is going through. In this one you cannot do it because there are no holes, so it takes longer. So that's the second disadvantage. And you have also, if you have something more fluid-like, you have these sheets. See, there is no hole in it. You can put everything on it. A dough, for example, you can make a cake also, or a crackers, fancy crackers. I will show you later. So this is only a side talk now. It's about dehydrating a little bit. I have two of them. I show you the things when they are built, well, in their place, where they stand, where they sit, while they will be working. It takes whole nights and days. They will work all the time. So for that reason, I will put them into a case, a closed case in my kitchen, so they're not that loud. I will show you that in a moment. So this one is my cupboard in the kitchen where I put all my dehydrator in, so that I can always use them and hide them. But when I work, they are pretty loud. So these are my dehydrators. This one I showed you a second before. You know, this, the round one with the hole inside. This is the rectangular one. It's the front plate. It is easy to put the things in. And here, see, this is one tray with a non-stick dehydrator sheet. See, non-stick sheet. And I put the others in pretty easy. 1, 2. Now there's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, you can. At the same time, you can make a lot of crackers in it. So this is a very nice and handy tool. Yeah, it's very fine. And this is the front. I close it. Now once it works, it looks like that. And the sound it makes. This is the sound it makes. It's a little bit loud if you have it all the time, because it takes all night to dehydrate, or sometimes even more than that. 1 day, even 2 days. And I close this door again, and it fits perfectly. So it is a lot more pleasant to listen, or not to listen. See, here are my onions, and some of them have already some green onions on it. I will cut them and use them as well. They have been sitting in my cupboard a little bit longer. It doesn't matter. I will see what I can do, what I can use, and what I have to cut away. And I have my cutting board, but I have two choices for a cutting board. You use it. I could turn it around and do the other side for the onions or for garlic or whatever. Or I could use a second cutting board, and I decided to use a second one once I'm cutting onions. I need a big bowl. Once the onions have been cut, put them in there. And I will begin with a small knife. Today I show you my super knife. It's maybe 30 or 40 years old, I don't know when I got it. It is a knife, I never sharpened it, and it's the sharpest knife I have. How is it possible? Well, it's made from iron, and it's hammered, and there are certain layers of iron always folded and hammered again. And that's how they make these kind of knives, and they really sharpen themselves. And they take rust a little bit, so they don't look that beautiful, but it doesn't matter. They are wonderful knives. Especially for cutting onions, this is best. So I begin just cutting, first cleansing the onions. So I cut the peel. You see there are some brown spaces in there. This has to be cut off. Of course, you don't want to eat something brown and rotten. So cut that off, and with an onion it's very simple because it has all these layers, the onion, and you can take off as many layers as you want. There's still a new one, another one, deeper inside. And so there's a point when you find that part of the onion you still will be able to use. So see it? It's onion. Some little skin is here. Take that skin off. There's some way to go to clean all my onions, and that is the most of the work. Just cleaning the onions, and the rest is not worth to mention. Once I've cleansed the first onion, what remains are some pieces. So I just make some smaller pieces of them and put in my bowl. Number one. Number two, here I'm a little bit more fortunate. This one is almost fresh. It's easy to peel it. I cut the top, I cut the bottom as always, and then I slice a little bit into the skin, into the brown peel, and then I can take the rest of the brown peel off. The brown peel is the dried peel, and is on the outside. That you take off. See, like this. All done. Just half and quartering. Done. Next one. And you know, we all know what happens when you cut onions. Sometimes they jump into our eyes and we have to weep. This is because there is some liquid, some burning liquid in that onion. That's why we like the onion that much. And this liquid goes into our eyes, and so we have to weep. To avoid this, it is very simple. You don't need to do any tricks with water, cutting under the water. You could, of course. But what really the easiest thing is, that is, you stop breathing through the nostrils. You breathe through the mouth. And once you breathe through the mouth, the liquid that jumps from the spring from the onion, it won't reach your eyes. Yeah, maybe you could take a little bit more distance, this, and only breathe through the mouth. For me at least, that way. See? I've been doing all these onions all the time, without any break, one after the other. I always breathe through my mouth, not through the nostrils. And I don't weep. I don't need to. As soon as I begin breathing through my nostrils, I will have to weep. But I won't show you now. I won't demonstrate that. See? Usually to peel an onion is pretty easy. Sometimes there is something on top when the greens already sprouted out. Then you have some brown at the top. And you cut a little bit, so diagonal. That should usually do it. And then you peel it with the fingers, as I just showed you. Once my onion have been cleansed and cut the gross way, I have to wash them shortly with clear water, because you see what is on my cutting board. a lot of dirt from the onions. You can't make sure all the dirt is going out during the cleansing, so you have to wash them shortly afterwards. Do that now. Well, the easiest way to wash it, just leave it in the bowl and put the water on it. Cold water. That will be enough. Once the water has risen to the surface, you will take a colander and take the onions out, just in there. The dirt will remain in the water. There isn't that much anyway. So just that a little bit of dirt will sticks on the onions. That's all we need to clear out. You could leave it on the onions, but you would save a little bit of the juice of the onion. But I don't know. I mean, we don't want to be thrifty here or so. I'd rather have my onions clean, and there is still all that the power of the onion is still inside. If you would eat one now, you would feel the difference. It is still hot. It's all in there. Just don't leave it in the water too long. What the Turkish people do, one day I had a friend from Turkey, his mother was a cook, of course, they all do that. He showed me a trick with onions. He cut the onions like I did here, in these little pieces, and then he put them on in a tray, and took really full hands of salt onto the onions and kneaded them, massaged the salt, and then he washed it with the water, and afterwards you could eat the onions like a fruit. And that's the kind of onions what the Turks do in their salad. And this is a wonderful way to prepare the onions. Sometimes I do that with the onions in the salad, but yeah, most of the time I eat them like they are, or as a powder. Next step is, after washing them, I put them in my food processor. The next main character entering the stage is my food processor. I see. And I open it. It's fitted with the S blade, the wave-like blade. And I turn the power button on. It's always off, so yeah, it's easier to save some energy. And here I go. Just put it in. It's a strong food processor. I put all the onions in, as many as are fitting, and load it to the top. See, some more will fit in. Oops, one fell down. It's called libation. In antiquity, Romans, they used to eat big meals, large meals, and sometimes they happened to throw something on the floor. Something fell down, and they didn't get it back from the floor up because they wanted to serve the deities. They said, "This is libation." So a little bit of sacrificing. Okay, off we go. Needed here. I put it into my bowl. Just needs to be cut down a little bit, broken down a little bit. See, this is what it looks like. These onions, cut onions. That's all. All my onions have been processed. I will put it into the dehydrator and see. This is I've showed you before. This has several levels, and I can do all these levels. That means I can make small portion ratios, so that it is easier to dehydrate. It won't take that long, it wouldn't be that expensive. That's why it's good to use the dehydrator to the full capacity, not just to work with one layer. It's better to use it full and to make small layers. This is the first layer. And while I'm doing that, I could give you some quick facts about onions, how healthy they are, and why it's so important to have onion on the table. Onion is one of the oldest, among the oldest vegetables known to humankind. It is incredibly nutritious and low in calories, has high vitamin C and E and others. There are other most interesting facts. It has even antiviral, antibacterial, and even anti-canceroid effects. So the onion, it helps you against diabetes. It makes your blood thinner, so if you have problems with your veins, it's very good. So there are so many wonderful benefits of this onion. It would be a pity not to use it. So it is appropriate to spend some time with her and to make the best of use. This is all, and I almost perfectly filled all my dehydrator trays with onion, so the least amount of energy will be wasted. I already showed you where I put it, in my cupboard over there, and once it is done, I show you how small amount of onion powder is I got from it. Friends, it's 20 hours later, and I show you a whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trays of my round dehydrator. Now they are filled with these layers. See how it's small now? It's dry, the onions. Now I fill them into a container that we get from maybe 4 times the quantity or 5 times the quantity of fresh onions. That's what all that remains. And this will finally I put that into a food processor to make a fine meal out of it. So I have a little powder. That powder, put it into a container, and then I can store it for some time, half a year or so. It won't change because the water, once the water is out of the fruit, it won't oxidize. So, let's see if it works. See, onion powder. It's a little bit gross. I will keep it like this and adjust it to what I need. Eventually, I might put it into a coffee grinder to make it more nice for my fitting, for my. How would I put it now in this container? Maybe with a paper. Okay. Why not? Why not? Do that together. So, other side you can wash. Shouldn't be that difficult, too difficult. Could be a little bit more clever. For example, using a folded paper, sheet of paper, to make a little slant, so nothing would be lost on the way. But it's okay like this. Also works. See? onion powder. .25 liters about. And here is my garlic powder. And then in the same way, very similar. A bit dark, you see, greenish, more reddish. That is the German word, Zwiebelpulver, onion powder. This is garlic powder, Knoblauchpulver. See? German lesson.